Hi, I'm Claire from Tapestry Funerals and I'm an independent funeral celebrant. Thank you for joining me for part 1 of the Funerals for You series, a guide into the choices you have when a loved one dies. The choices that we are going to be looking at in this episode are ones that, in all honesty, you can start thinking about even before a death has taken place. Most of us at some stage are going to find ourselves in the position of having to make arrangements following the death of a loved one. It's not a great position to be in, but having some idea of what your loved one wanted can be extremely helpful. Not many people are that comfortable talking about death, and I'm not suggesting that we should all be devoting months to planning our own funerals, but a little bit of forward planning isn't necessarily a bad thing. So the first 5 choices you may want to give consideration to are cremation or burial, direct cremation or burial or attended service, traditional or eco-friendly, religious or person-centred, and funeral plan or payment at the time. We'll now go through each of these one by one, but please be aware that I'm not trying to promote one option over the other. My aim is just to raise awareness about the choices you have. And also, as I explained in my introductory video, my experience is based on funeral practices in the UK. So I do apologise if some of these options are not available or applicable in your area. Let's get started. Number 1, cremation or burial. According to the funeral survey conducted by the Funeral Guide in 2023, which questioned 1,800 members of the British public, 72% said they would prefer to be cremated, 22% said they would like to be buried, and 6% were non-committal. Within the UK, cremation services tend to be cheaper, particularly once you factor in the cost of buying a burial plot, headstone, and paying for grave digging fees. But the choice between the two is also subject to cultural and religious beliefs. Number 2, direct or attended service. In basic terms, a direct cremation or burial is not attended by family and friends, whereas an attended service is. Direct cremations and burials have become increasingly popular in recent years. Sunlight's 2024 Cost of Dying report suggested that 1 in 5 people are now choosing to have a direct cremation or burial rather than an attended service. And again, cost is a significant factor. Sunlight's same report stated that in 2024, the average cost of an attended cremation service was £4,000, and the average cost of an attended burial service was £5,000. In comparison, the average cost of a direct cremation or burial was £1,500. Many people are very aware of the large national companies offering direct cremation packages, but are less aware that many local funeral directors also offer direct cremation services. And these cost considerably less than their attended services, and if a direct cremation is booked through a local funeral director, the family can then liaise with the local company and meet with the funeral director or arranger in person, rather than corresponding via telephone or online. As with most things, it doesn't necessarily have to be an all or nothing decision. Some funeral directors also offer packages for a slightly higher cost than their direct cremation packages, which allow a small number of attendees to gather in their chapel of rest to say their farewells prior to the body being taken to the crematorium. And likewise, some of the larger direct cremation companies facilitate an attended cremation at a crematorium within their network. This will not necessarily be your closest crematorium, where family and friends can gather in the crematorium chapel to say their goodbyes. However, there's no hearse, limousine, pallbearers provided by a funeral director, or any of the bells and whistles, and this helps to bring the costs down. These packages also don't automatically include someone to lead the ceremony, although a celebrant can be added for an additional fee. Number 3, traditional or eco-friendly. Neither fire cremation nor traditional burial in a lawn cemetery are particularly eco-friendly options. According to a 2023 article in the Environmental Journal, the average UK crematorium emits between 160 and 190 kilograms of CO2 for every individual cremation. This is equivalent to driving a standard-sized car 470 miles. Particulates and toxins are also sometimes produced during this process. In terms of a traditional burial, while the burial process itself is not considered to be particularly damaging to the environment, if the body has been embalmed prior to burial, this can lead to the leaching of chemicals into the soil. Currently, the most environmentally friendly option is to be buried in a designated natural burial site, which may be a woodland or meadow, without the body being embalmed. Factors to consider are whether it's significant to you whether the land has been consecrated. The majority of natural burial grounds are not consecrated, although many will facilitate the plot being blessed, and whether, if the land isn't consecrated, there is a danger of it being built on or developed in the future. Many have trust arrangements in place to safeguard against this. In the future, water cremation, sometimes known as resumation or aquamation, and human composting may become more widespread options subject to the legislation of each country or state. Both are promoted as being environmentally friendly, so if having an eco-friendly ending is important to you, it's worth keeping an eye on the legislation within your country to see when these become legal options for you. Please note that at the time of recording this, neither are currently available in the UK, but water cremation is legal in other parts of the world, such as some states of America, parts of Australia, South Africa, and County Meath in Ireland. Archbishop Desmond Tutu raised public awareness of water cremation when he left instruction that he wanted a water cremation when he died in 2021. Number 4. Would you prefer the service to be led by a religious officiant, a celebrant, or to be family-led? This is not a straight religious versus secular choice. As with the direct cremation versus attended service question, there is a spectrum of in-between. If the person was a regular practitioner of faith and drew comfort and support from religion throughout their life, they are very likely to want a religious funeral service to mark the end of their life. And likewise, if the person made it clear that they didn't believe in any form of God or supernatural being at all, you may feel a humanist celebrant would be best placed to lead their service. But many people consider themselves to be somewhere between the two. They are not regular practitioners of faith, but they haven't totally rejected the idea of spirituality either. Some families may also be trying to plan a funeral service which pleases both the religious and those who feel the focus should be on giving thanks for a human life. And in these cases, an independent celebrant can lead a service that is person-centred, but also includes some religious elements such as prayer, reading, or hymn or religious song. Independent celebrants are not representatives of a particular faith or school of thought, so they are free to shape the service in whichever way the family wants. Of course, you don't have to have an officiant at all. The service can be entirely family-led. This allows for a very personal goodbye, but given the emotional nature of the situation, it can be nice to have someone who is not emotionally involved on hand to help with the planning of the ceremony and then to act as compere on the day, while still allowing family members to take the fall in leading the delivery of the eulogy and the readings. And finally, number 5, funeral plan or paying at the time. Bearing in mind attended funerals can cost around the £4,000 to £5,000 mark, and this doesn't include the cost of a wake, families need to ensure they have this money available immediately following a death. If the surviving family members do have this money available, and are in a position of being able to wait to reclaim it from their loved one's estate after inheritance tax has been paid and probate has been granted, then they may be happy to pay for the funeral at the time. 2 things to bear in mind here are that any financial powers of attorney that had been in place cease at the point of death, and funeral costs count as deductible expenses when calculating inheritance tax. However, if the surviving family members are not in a position to find this sort of money easily, or the person in question doesn't want their family to have to fund their funeral, a funeral plan might be something to consider. Funeral plans effectively mean paying for many of the funeral costs in advance so that when the time comes, your family can go to the funeral director stated in your plan, securing the knowledge that many of the costs have already been provided for. The other aspect, which some people find attractive, is the idea of locking into current prices. and also the fact that they can decide upon the questions we've just highlighted whilst they're still alive, and then have these wishes recorded as part of their plan. If the idea of a funeral plan interests you, there are things to check, because it isn't the case that all funeral plans are the same, and it isn't the case that all funeral plan providers work in the same way. So do check the following before signing up. Number 1, what exactly is covered by the proposed plan, and what will your family still have to pay at the time? Number 2, how portable is the plan? I.e., if you decide to retire to a different area, or if during the last couple of years of your life you move to a different locality to be cared for by a son or daughter or care home, what are the stipulations for moving your plan to a different funeral director, and is there a charge for doing this? And number 3, what are the payment terms? If you're not paying in one lump sum, but are electing to spread the cost over a number of years, what are the instalment charges? That was our final choice or point for consideration in this, our first episode of Funerals for You, the choices you have when a loved one dies. If you found this useful, please subscribe by selecting the dragonfly in the bottom right, and look out for the next episode, the choices you have immediately following a death. Thank you very much indeed for watching.